Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great day so far. If you will, like, share, comment on the post, I would appreciate it. Any one or any combination will be great. And then jump into the book of Acts, chapter 10. Just going to look at one verse today. And a verse that has, for some, stirred some controversy and confusion. And I'm not going to be very honest with you. I'm not going to attempt to solve all that today, but I do hope to bring out one point here out of this verse that will be a challenge to us this morning. Verse 46 says, "For they were hearing them speaking in tongues and extolling God." And so after these people gathered with Cornelius, the Spirit falls on them. We see that they begin to speak in tongues. So let's deal with that. That is speaking in tongues is an issue that stirs up a lot of debate and a lot of controversy, even a lot of arguments. I was trying to be nice there, calling it controversy, but it's worse than just controversy. And so, and again, I'm not going to solve that in 5 or 6 minutes here this morning. I'm not even going to attempt to. But what I will say about this incident, when this happened, this this incident, this speaking in tongues, was a necessity. It had to happen. And the reason I say that is because had it not happened, there would have been a division in the church. Some back in Jerusalem would demand proof of some kind. We've already talked about how Peter told Cornelius when he got there, it's against the law for me to be here. So there were going to be some who would object to the fact that Peter went to the Gentiles, that he was preaching to them, taking the gospel to them. And so there needed to be something that showed outwardly something they could point to and say, hey, they have the exact same salvation that we have. And that was the speaking in tongues, just as the church had at Pentecost. And so this was, as much as anything, a sign for people who weren't even there, a sign for people who were in Jerusalem. The Jewish Christians would have complained because Cornelius and his friends were uncircumcised Gentiles. They hadn't been following the law of Moses, and therefore they don't deserve any gift of God. But in spite of everything that they wanted to say, they could say whatever they wanted to. They could argue all day long, but the fact was they were speaking in tongues just like the Jewish believers had done. And so there's evidence here that they were converted. Evidence that they had the same gift, the same salvation that the Jews who were there at Pentecost did. And so again, they needed it was more again for people who weren't even there than it was for the actual converts. We already know how Jews and Samaritans, the division, and how the Jews looked at the Samaritans as second-class citizens. We would have had the exact same circumstance in the church, even if they would have accepted them as Christians. They would have accepted them as second-class Christians because they didn't have the same gift we do. Now they're on equal footing. And again, I'm not delving in a little bit of time I have this morning into the into speaking in tongues and sign gifts and all those things. But what I will say is what we have here is an example of an important lesson for us. When something happens on the inside, there ought to be evidence on the outside. I'm not saying everyone should speak in tongues or anyone should speak in tongues, but I am saying that it should be evident that our life, just like these men who spoke in tongues and therefore silenced their critics, took the ammo away from their critics, and demonstrated the genuine nature of their salvation. That should be our goal. That should be our ambition in our Christian walk. That again, that our life is a sign that our attitudes, our actions, the way we treat others, all those things, even more powerful than speaking in tongues, because quite honestly, people could fake speaking in tongues, but to genuinely day in and day out demonstrate the Christian life, so that if anybody challenges our relationship with God, they have to stop and say, well, I knew him when, I knew what he used to be, and I see the change in his life. And so we have a great challenge this morning. Is there evidence in our life? Can others tell? There's an old thing that's been around for years. It says, if Christianity became a crime, would there be enough evidence to convict us? Challenging thought. Have a great day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.